Hello and welcome to Swaay.Health. I'm Colin Hung, and you are about to listen and watch something new. We wanted to offer the Swaay.Health community more content, but in a more fun and fluid way. So, what we decided to do was try a roundtable. We asked a few of our healthcare marketing friends to join us virtually for a discussion on a particular topic. But rather than firing questions at them like we would in an interview or a panel, we purposely took a more casual approach. Think of your local coffee shop and imagine all of the people on this round table sitting in comfy chairs, sipping coffee, and just chatting. That's the kind of feel we want for you today. Joining me on this first Swaay.Health Coffee Chat Roundtable is Burt Rosen, Julie Wolk, and Brittany Quemby. We're going to chat about successful marketing careers. Let's get to it.
Swaay.Health.
Julie, Burt, Brittany, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for having
us. It's been a long time since I've seen you, so it's nice to have everyone together again.
It is funny how it takes getting together virtually to realize, oh man, we miss each other. We haven't seen each other in a while in person. So, but this is special. Thank you to all three of you for joining me today. This is kind of a new format that we're trying. We're doing a little bit of a roundtable discussion. So this is not meant to be a panel discussion. I'm not going to be firing 20 questions at all of you, but really just a chance to sit down, gab a little bit, cover off a few topics. I think the general theme of today will be really marketing careers, I think in general. So Julie, why don't we start with you? And then we'll go around the table here. What attracted you to become a healthcare marketer?
I tripped into it, honestly, Colin. Just kind of like the Jack Sparrow drunken trip into it. I had my own business for like 10 years, and I had a variety of clients, marketing and brand communications, but I began to, for some reason, attract a lot of healthcare and health IT. And during that time, one of my clients came to me and said, "Would you ever come to the dark side and go client side?" And over time, they wooed me. And I was about 10 years into that business, and I decided it was time for a change. And I said yes. And that catapulted me into a healthcare IT space that has been just an incredible journey.
Bert, what about you? What got you into healthcare marketing?
So for starters, I like to joke that everybody works in healthcare, just some people get paid for it, right? So whether you're a caregiver or a patient, like it's not like a labor of love. Like working with the healthcare system is a job, whether or not you get paid for it. But I was in hospitality marketing for a while. I was in education marketing for a while. And then a job came open at a healthcare IT company in Portland, Oregon, where I live. Which was backed by a big payer, but it was a startup mentality, and that really, really appealed to me. And I don't know if hopefully I'm not going to offend people, but generally healthcare marketing, I think marketing in general sucks, but healthcare marketing specifically is really challenged. So it seemed to me, who likes to be strategic and creative, that it was a great opportunity to come in and try to do some things and make some noise in an industry that doesn't make any noise at all, really.
I love that.
It was,
Bert, one of the things I love what you said too, for me, is the fact of it. It's such an opportunity to be creative.
Right.
To your point, you could bring all of that skill set from those other industries. And that's been so much fun, is to empower other people in marketing who didn't know that they could be creative in healthcare IT, and to push the envelope to see where the edge is.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like if you were to say to me, Colin, I don't remember if this is a question later, but like, if I was to improve healthcare marketing one way, I'd hire more non-healthcare marketing people.
Mm.
I'd hire marketing people from other industries. Because like, I don't want the people who are going to look at me and say like, I can't do that because it's against this regulation. I want people who say, hey, I want to go do this. And then we say, well, that might be tough, but let's figure out a way around it. Or how do we come up with something alternative?
I love that.
And people who've come up in healthcare are often, and it's not just healthcare, I've seen it in education is the same thing. People who come up in the industry are very conservative and they're afraid to try to take risks or be different. So it seemed like the bar was so low, it was a great opportunity.
It is true, right? Like healthcare is behind other industries, marketing, the marketing aspect included, right? Where we use tactics only after they've been proven in other industries. So yeah, being creative in healthcare, you're right. The bar is kind of low, but on the other hand, the reaction of the audience is also 10 years behind. So, when you're on the bleeding edge, sometimes it doesn't work because the audience isn't ready for it.
No, that's a great point. And to be honest, like you can't, I mean, healthcare has really only been marketing or thinking like consumer types of marketing since what, ACA, since 2008-ish.
That's right.
Versus when I worked in the hotel business, they've been marketing to travelers forever. Yeah. So it is more of a younger world.
I still remember early on with one of the companies that I was with, and I always say there's really 4 jobs as a marketer. You want to try to be either provocative, informative, inspiring, or entertaining. And when you say that in healthcare marketing, they're like, well, we've got the, informative and sometimes the inspiring, but are you serious? You really want us to be either provocative or entertaining? And my answer is yes.
Yeah, always.
Actually, yes.
Well, Brittany, let's go to you. How did you get into healthcare marketing?
I actually, similar to Julie, I kind of it fell into my lap. I was actually between jobs at the time, and one of my friends told me about a job at an EHR company in Canada, one of the biggest ones in Canada. I didn't even know what an EHR was. Even some of the things that they were talking about, all the acronyms, I was like, this is for me, but let's jump in and see where it takes me. And that kind of kicked off my healthcare journey. And I was kind of cold calling into provider offices, trying to tell them about a EHR that was hooked up to the internet in the cloud, and you could have all your records in here. And I think I was blowing their minds because they didn't really understand what the concept was. But that was kind of how I got into it, and then I've been in here ever since.
I love that story, and I'm always grateful that I was a little part of that story. So
yeah, and that's how I met Colin. So all good things come from that role falling into my lap.
And Colin, how about you?
Finding out,
like
me?
Yeah,
I was kind of like Julie's story, really. I kind of stumbled into it. Like when I first started, when I was working with an IBM business partner, and we installed document management solutions for people, right? And so I just stumbled into, I happened to be doing a lot of stuff for payers. So a lot of back then, a lot of the life insurance claim forms would come in, and they would all come in on paper, and we built the devices and the solutions to handle all that paper. So I got to see healthcare from the payer side first, and I actually got to know it pretty well, and then got a chance to work with a few hospitals, and I just loved the people in that space. And so when an opportunity came up at another company that was sort of more focused in healthcare, I decided to jump at it, and have been sort of here ever since. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. For me, it was the people, and it was less about the marketing aspect and more about, I just enjoyed working for organizations where the bottom line wasn't necessarily 100% the end goal. Even though as marketers, as our job, it is to fill the funnel, right, on the B2B side. But it was nice to say, hey, really though, the solutions that we were providing were really helping patients or helping clinicians at the time. So that was always a nice feeling at the end. And it wasn't always about, margins on a margin call or something,
Well, and look at you now, you're an icon.
Yes,
I don't know if I would go that far, unless you meant like an icon on your desktop or something. But but
yeah. I would say though, like hopefully this doesn't sound too kiss assy, but like because of Sway and Hit Mick before it and Hit SM and a lot of the things that you and John and Brittany have been involved in, like you have elevated the marketing in healthcare.
Yeah.
Like there's no question you made a difference in the marketing in healthcare. So again, I have nothing to gain out of kissing ass, and I'm not on the payroll or anything, but like you have made a difference, and you guys should feel good about that.
Yeah.
You really should.
Thank you for saying that. And that is a tribute to the Sway community, right? It's such a strong community. It's a great community to be a part of. But I want to go back to something you said earlier, Burt. Like you mentioned creativity and sort of that out of the box thinking. Is that a skill that you think is necessary for, to be a really good healthcare marketer?
I think it's necessary to be a good any kind of marketer, right? Like I think, there are let's see, where do I start? So brand development is huge, right? And having your brand be differentiated from somebody else's brand is really, really important. And if you're not going to figure out how can I bring my brand to life in different ways that are going to stand out, you're not going to be successful doing it. Like one of the terms that I've started to use a ton, maybe I'll start a sportswear company one day. Like my philosophy of marketing, somebody asked me, and it was like, oh, it's all about the double take, right? So like I want people to see something and then to say, wait, what? And then go back and look at it again, because then they're engaged and then they're interested. And I think a lot of the marketing that I've seen, certainly in the smaller digital health side of the world, is very, very product focused. And there's such an opportunity to be benefit focused. And when you start being benefit focused for the person to, who you're going to offer the benefit to, it kind of opens the world to be more creative. Because, I could just tell you, when I was in pricing transparency, like if I go out to a payer and I work with them to help talk to their members about pricing transparency, nobody cares. If I go and I talk to their members and say, hey, your deductible is this high, you're probably not going to hit it this year, but did you know MRIs can cost anywhere from $500 to $2,000 within a 4-block radius? Like that's a completely different thing, right? But the industry, at least when I got into it, was so much more product feature focused than it was benefit focused. And anyway, so I do, yes, to circle back, I think creativity can really help your brand stand out and can do a better job of relating to your audience. And I think relatability is something that healthcare has in spades, but people don't use. Again, one other quick, I'll be really quick because I talk a lot. Like we would go into sales meetings, and instead of talking about all the features and benefits of the product in the first meeting, like I would walk in and I would say, okay, who's had an MRI? And invariably someone in the room is going to raise their hand, right? Like there's certain procedures you could always count on. So someone's going to raise their hand, and then they would say, I've had an MRI. And I'd say, great, what did it cost? No idea. And you could bet that they would never know what it would cost, right? And you could say, that's what we do, right? Like we help you figure out what it's going to cost so you pay less out of pocket for those procedures. And then it doesn't matter what my single sign-in algorithms look like at that point, right? So anyway, I'll stop talking, but I do think creativity matters for sure.
Well, and I'm just going to throw in on that one because you mentioned, thinking outside the box. One of my favorite quotes that I keep in my office is one from Malcolm Gladwell, and it says, if you constantly have to think outside the box, maybe it's the box that needs fixing. And so, that's always one of the things when I go into a company and they're looking at a rebrand. Sometimes it's a rebrand situation because, to Burt's point, it's their baby. Sometimes it's the founders that have built the marketing or, the early Genesis group. And, this is their sweet spot. This is their baby, but they're not talking to people. They're talking to their baby and wanting to love on their baby. And so, you have to take that step back, build out those audience personas so that everything you're doing is talking to a human. Yeah.
I was going to say, and the whole dynamic is so interesting based on the age of the company and who's running the company. If it's a founder, it's all about how amazing the product is, right? Someone who's been a CEO at other companies, it's all about how do you grow, right? Like the orientations are different. Sorry, Brittany.
No, that's a good point. I think, Colin, we've been there too, right? With certain folks that we worked with where they have this product or solution, and that's all they can. It's such a one lens situation that they're looking at it with.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. No, I like those. I mean, I think obviously as a marketer, you have to be creative. You have to think outside the box. You have to do all those things. For me though, like the one skill that I think to be a successful healthcare marketer you need is patience.
Yeah.
tolerance, because marketing is one of these weird roles where everyone thinks they know how to do it. Right?
Yes.
And so I've seen some marketers and seen some people who just get really upset about that, right? And it's one of these weird positions where it, like, if I tried to tell a salesperson how to do their job, they would tell me where to go, right? Like, even though I've been one, but I understand why, right? Like, if I tried to tell a surgeon how to do their job, they would do the same thing, right? But yet everyone tells you how to build a website. Everyone tells you how to make your ad better.
Right.
Everyone tells you how to. So I think to be a successful healthcare marketer, you got to just sort of let that go, right? You just kind of go, that's just part of the noise. That's part of my job. And I've known a few marketers who couldn't get over that. Um, and so I think that's just for your own sanity. You gotta have that skill of just be patient. It's okay. Everyone's just going to comment. No one's going to be happy with what you do 100%, and that's fine. So I think to be a successful marketer, you need to have a little bit of that. But also you need to have patience in terms of a lot of things in marketing are long term. They take a little bit of time before the results start to come in. And if you try to rush it, that can be disastrous. Like you can't sort of just measure the effectiveness of webinars by doing one webinar, right? You can't measure the effectiveness of your email campaign after the first email, right? And so you have to have patience to kind of let it ferment, let it bake to finally get the results that you can really judge it on. So I look, I would add, in addition to what you two mentioned, I would add that as a skill that's needed for a successful marketer.
Yeah, I think too, I would add into it as well is flexibility. Because in my view and what I've experienced, healthcare is unique in that it's B2B and B2C, or we call it B2P, B2P, and so, you need to be able to flex to so many different types of audiences, but also you have to have the skill of being able to distill complex topics to a level that doesn't dumb it down, still gives the information, but then again, makes it provocative, entertaining, informative, or inspiring. And
I
that's
love
not
that
an easy task.
For sure. I love that you said that, Julie, because I was going to say flexibility, adaptability, and curiosity, because I think what you said was spot on. And something that Burt said earlier is really looking to other industries or using things from other industries that we can use in our marketing, and just always being curious about what else is out there. What things can we do that are different, or as you said, provocative, that we might not necessarily always do in our industry. So be curious to kind of look to those other areas, and then bring it in-house.
It's funny. So I volunteer a lot right now, and I was volunteering with a local hospital, and I was talking to somebody who's telling me that she's been charged with developing a whole person care, like almost touch point map from the day somebody gets diagnosed to the day they're discharged, for this hospital system. And she was talking about her advisory council and stuff like that. And she said, "What do you think?" And I said, like, go find somebody who worked at Ritz-Carlton to be on your advisory council, right? Like, find people, like, get someone from Zappos, find people who are amazing customer service people, and bring them into healthcare, because, like, I'll argue and fight with anybody who tells me customer service in healthcare is good. There's a lot that could be learned from other industries here, right?
That's
so
right.
Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. And again, does a hotel person understand that there are HIPAA issues? No. Do they have to? No. Right? Like, it's not like, don't be afraid of those things. So I love, Brittany, curiosity is one of my favorite words. So I love that word. I think that's a great one. And I think that also gets to Colin's point a little bit. Like, there's kind of two tracks, right? There's the track where, everybody's a marketer and everybody wants a comment, and you come up with the projects that lets them do that, and you learn to be patient because you don't care, but you distract them with that, and then you go make all the decisions to do the really cool stuff in other places that they're not going to understand. So you can argue all day about pink as a color or wordsmithing a mission statement. Sure, if that makes the exec team happy, do it. And meantime, go put on some campaign that's groundbreaking no one's ever heard of.
Yes.
See, now you're hitting on the secret sauce as a marketing leader, right? Like, you got to distract with one set of projects, and then while you get sort of behind the scenes doing all the real stuff.
Look at the shiny object.
That's right. Look at that shiny new website. Go ahead and make comments. While in the meantime, we're building a campaign. Yeah.
Oh, you don't like pink? We'll change it. No worries. Or we're going to curse in our lead gen campaign, but you won't know
Right.
that.
I'm curious to pick both of your brains on this, or everybody's brain, but I have a bunch of friends in the industry, and then I think there's some within the Sway community who are looking for work. And I know that you guys have probably done some hiring for teams before. So, for those folks who are looking, what do you look for when you're hiring someone? I could think we've kind of talked about some of those factors there, but what are the factors that go into that decision to actually bring somebody on the team?
And it really depends on what stage, whether you're building a team from the ground up or filling in your holes. I think it's important in today's landscape, excuse me, to make sure that you have a strong in-house team. And really taking a look to make sure that each domain of marketing, that you have wicked smart people in those. And then if you have a gap, I think that's the right space to look. And then if you need to hire, an outside vendor agency, et cetera, that helps you scale exactly what that Genesis team can do. And so when I'm looking, I really take a look at all of those domains, see where, everyone's strength is. And sometimes that means putting people in some different areas, because I really feel like their strength might be in a different wheelhouse, and we can pull someone else in. So, part of that is a strategic maneuver as a leader. But I think that's where it starts. And then once you have the skill sets and the gaps covered, what's really important to me is to decide, to the points we've talked about, are they curious? Are they willing to be creative? Do they have the autonomy to pick up and go? Are they coachable? Are they also have that collaborative spirit? So that, because many ideas, is just, it's a great place to be that groundswell for something new and different and fresh. So, it's a combination of both skill and then, that who core of your being are you bringing to that work? What about you, Burt?
Yeah, for me, so here's what I would say. So I was looking for a while, and it's like looking is hard, right? And it's really hard. And I think the hardest part for me, I think there are a few things. So one, you feel like not anchored completely, right? Like whether or not people like this concept, like work is a community, right? And if you're not working, that's a big part of a community that you've had a lot of identity in that you're just not a part of anymore. So one is I want to find people who can realize stuff like that and aren't out of work, and telling, saying, I just, last week was great. I watched 5 new series on Netflix. It's like, I'm happy for you, but like, I would love to hear the stories about how you engaged yourself. So like,
Yes.
there's a ton. I mean, I've learned a lot about this, and I'm happy to go further if anybody wants to have conversations on this, but there's a ton of nonprofits in the world, and they all need smart people who want to help. So I volunteered a ton. My favorite, can I pitch an organization that I have no interest in? Like, I'm not involved or anything. It's called catchafire.org. It's really cool. It's basically a marketplace for nonprofits and people who want to volunteer. So it's not like, come join our advisory board, but it's like, we need a social media strategist who will do 3 one-hour phone calls with us to help us define our social media strategy. Or we need a graphic designer to develop a flyer for us. And you go on and you read what nonprofits need, and then you sign up for whatever you want. So I've done calls with nonprofits in Rwanda doing clean water. I've done healthcare nonprofit calls. I've done, I don't do a ton of religious ones, but I've done 1 or 2 if they've called me. And I've met a ton of people, and I've learned a ton. And I actually feel like I've been doing stuff, right? Because we get jaded. Like, we live in the marketing and the business world all the time. And we think, oh, we're not, I don't know if we all think this, but some of us might think, we're not as smart as some of the other people in our world. But then you talk to people who have no foot in this world, and they're so appreciative, and you can really help people. So that was a long-winded answer, but for me, if I was to be hiring again, I'd be looking for people. I don't care if you're out of work. Everybody's out of work now at some point in time. I want to see what you did with the time. And I don't want to know that you worked 80 hours a week. I mean, I'm hoping you say you volunteered 10 hours a week and you took 30 hours to get your mind where you want it to be, right? And stuff.
Right.
But that's some of the stuff I look for, is people who want to feel engaged and therefore figure out how to keep themselves engaged, even if they're not necessarily getting paid for it. But time is a very valuable commodity. And, if you're out of work, you can give a lot of people a lot of benefit from volunteering stuff. So.
And Burt is talking about the, kind of what he's looking for at that particular moment of the interview. I know one of the things that I've seen a lot, and this is amazing to me for people who are applying for a marketing role, is a resume isn't marketing themselves very well. And it absolutely has gobsmacked me how often that's happened. And it's gotten to where I'm helping a lot of people, fix their resumes. But if you're in marketing and you're going after a marketing role, your resume is your piece. That's your piece saying, am I a good marketer or not? So you really do need to invest that time. How is it standing out? Are you really showing your impact? How is it that you're laying it out and presenting that information that makes me do that double take that Burt talked about? Just don't give me a bland page with a list of skills.
Yeah. Actually, that's another thing, another item on my business list that I want to start is I want to reinvent the resume. Resumes suck. LinkedIn is fine, but like applicant tracking systems have changed so much, and the way they screen for keywords and for like the whole model has changed, but we still produce these stupid one-page pieces of paper that really don't say who you are as a human being or what you bring to the world. So I do think that's an opportunity there to reinvent that.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Like when you look at marketing roles, you'd expect someone's marketing resume to be a little bit creative, a little bit different, and yet that doesn't work for any application that you're making to a large company, because they are using the AI algorithms or whatever, and AI algorithms can't read a histogram, right? Or they can't read those really fun graphics that you're on, that are on your resumes these days, like that can be on your resumes. But for small companies, I can tell you when we were hiring or when I was hiring last, I appreciated those, right? Like, and even though a lot of the formats ended up looking kind of the same, the creative ones all looked similar, at least, you tried. You tried to be a little bit different. And so that scored you a few more points in separating yourself from the rest of the pack.
Yeah. And if I can clarify on that, I think, when I'm saying it's creative, it's not necessarily, jazz hands on it, with all of those things. How you word it can also work to your thing. Even though it's words, how you present it. Do you have a list of what are the strengths I'm bringing to this? Here are the key highlights. Here are the spotlights, really, and you put all your keywords in there, but instead of just running through a list of skills, it's how you're presenting those words and arranging those words on that page that can have a creative difference as well. But that said, have the ones with the jazz hands so that when you follow up and you actually get a name, you can send that one in that shows another side.
And Colin, you said rabbit holes are okay, right?
Yeah, rabbit holes are fine. Yeah.
Like I'm convinced that AI and applicant tracking systems are actually killing talent because, somebody who was on the market for a while, I applied to billions of jobs. Like here's a story. This is an actual story. It happened to me. So one of the jobs that I had was I actually ran marketing for KinderCare, which is the largest national chain of childcare centers in the U.S. So I led marketing. I mean, I was the guy. I reported to the CEO, right? Our biggest competitor had a job open for a VP of marketing. And I sent them a note. And it was like, in my mind, it's like, even if you don't want to hire me, interview me, because you can ask me a ton of questions about what I did at your competitor, right? I got a response 2 hours later that unfortunately, they're not moving forward with my resume. So I called a friend who knew someone there, and I ended up being flown to a different city to interview with their entire exec team, including their CEO. So it was like, if they would have based everything on the tracking system, they would have missed all the intangibles I had, all the knowledge I had, all the experience I had. It would have just picked up on the keywords I had. And that's, I'm honestly convinced that AI will get better with this. But today, that and applicant tracking is screening out people's intangibles, which can be more important than their skill sets. So,
well, I think too, the real secret, if we're looking at people who, and there's a ton of marketers looking for work right now. And I think really that secret sauce that you mentioned, Colin, is networking. You've got to have people in your corner. And I have to say, I started working when dinosaurs were roaming the earth. And I'm honest with you when I say this, I've never gotten a role from anything I've applied online to. It's
I was
all been
just going to
through
say
who
the
I
same thing.
know. It's all been through that. It's all been through the outreach. And so, yes, networking is so underrated, and it's not that sterile, stand there with the cocktail in a hotel ballroom and make small
Mm.
talk. There are so many ways that you can network in interesting ways nowadays.
And back
I
to
love it.
Brittany's word, curiosity. Networking is great if you're curious.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead,
I
Brittany.
love that you said that because I was thinking about this. This might be TMI, but in the shower last night, I was thinking about my jobs and my previous, history and how I got into this role. And I was like, I never, and thinking about recruiters and applying on LinkedIn and everything, I have never gotten a role without having a connection or have been networked into that role. And I was like,
That's
isn't
right.
that fascinating? I don't know if that tells a lot about me. Maybe my resume is crap. But it's just I guess it's just not the way that it's worked out for me. So I love that you said that, because I think that's probably happening more it's happening more that way than the traditional, sending in your resume and getting it scanned and getting a call back.
Oh, I am the queen of the 15-minute coffee chat. I mean, I
Mm,
cannot, you've got to have the audacity to just reach out to people. And it's been amazing, the people at levels and industries I've been able to lure into a 15-minute coffee chat, and you learn so much.
mm.
And then at the end, I always ask, is there anyone else you recommend I speak with now that you know a little bit about? And there's always, they'll send a couple of people, and then it just keep it going.
I have this book on my
Yeah.
bookshelf over here. It's from Harvey Mackay, and it was written in like 1970 or something. Like it's one of these older sort of salesy kind of marketing books, but I still read it today. It's a book called Dig Your Well Before You Need It, or Dig Your Well Before
Mhm,
You're Thirsty, or something like that. And his premise, he was a master networker back in
mhm,
the 70s, and that was his exact premise, to say, everything you're going to get from your business side of your life comes
Mhm.
from who you know, as
Mhm.
much and more than what you know. I mean, you have to be good at your job. You have to do that. Otherwise, you're not going to meet good people, or they're not going to want to associate with you. But basically, what he said was, you need to can constantly be building your network and your community, and then feeding that community, so that when it's your turn to need something or need some help, that community is there for you,
That's
right?
right.
And we talk about it all the time at Sway events, of course. You give before you get, and all those kinds of approaches. But it's exactly this, right? Like, if there was if you, while you are employed, if you could help someone else who is not employed,
Yeah.
the universe has a funny way of repaying that down the road, right? And
mhm,
through a connection that maybe you have, or that connection that that person may have. I mean, I do a lot of work with a lot of startups in my area here, a lot of healthcare startups. And to your point, Bert, I help them, with their go-to-market strategies, and 1 hour phone calls here or there to answer some questions, or even look at some of their materials and just giving them an opinion. And I don't get paid for a lot of that work that I do, but I know I want to, because I want to help.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, a lot of these founders and people that I've helped over the years, they've now gone on and are employed at some really amazing places.
Mhm.
And so, thankfully, I'm not in need of a job, but I've been able to connect other people who are looking to those people, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that pays off. And I think so. I think
Yeah.
you're right, Julie. Like, the network and your community. I think that's a better way to
Mhm.
think about it, is your community, because networking scares people, right? But when you say it's your
Mhm.
community, I
Mhm.
think that's really what can really make a difference when you're looking for work.
Yeah. And I would encourage everyone, regardless of your situation, and if you are looking for work now, whether that's been of your own choice or not, to have left your last company, um, if you can, even if it's just take a weekend, but really take a pause
mm,
and go sit with yourself. And,
mhm,
even best if you can write. And I know handwriting is something people don't like to do, but you think differently when you've got hand to
mm.
paper more than you do hand to keyboard. Um, and just really sit with yourself on what is it that you want to do, what lights you up, and really consider, look at the past role you had, think about, what strengths did you bring to that, but also have a real honest audit with yourself of where maybe did you not hold up your end of the bargain, particularly if maybe, there was a situation to the reason you left your last role. And so, spending that time is invaluable. And I think that it will do so much to help inform you of how you really want to approach your job hunt. I don't know if any of you have ever tried, to do that, but.
Yeah, kind of building on that a little bit. Like, so yes, so I think that's great, and thinking is important for sure, and reflection is important for sure. The one thing I would add to what you said is, I would even go further and say, think about your life in general a little bit. Like
Yeah.
like how much of your life do you want work to play? Like I did this, it wasn't an exercise, I just did it for myself one day. I imagined myself 10 years ago, and I put a bunch of circles on a piece of paper or on a slide or whatever I did. And I made the circles the size of how much emphasis in my life was on those topics. And I did it like 5 or 10 years ago and for today. And, 5 or 10 years ago, like my job was the biggest circle I had. It was my identity. My family was a smaller circle. My friends were a smaller circle. And then I did what you suggested. And I took some time and really thought about life in general. And I said, I don't want my job to be the biggest part of my life anymore. I want my life to be the biggest part of my life, and I want my job to influence it. And then I started to think through, okay, if I wanted to contribute to my overall feeling of life, what are the qualities in a job that are really important to me? And now I actually have like 4 things that I look for in any job I apply for. I mean, I've become the king of self frameworks, I guess. Like I have what I call my own strategic plan and guiding principles, but then I also like came up with the 4 things that were really important for me in my next job. And I've been pretty vocal about them, and I've stayed pretty true to them. But I think that idea of taking a pause and stepping back, I blog, so the blogging for me is therapeutic, but I also go take walks in the woods, which really helps me. So I think there's a lot of ways to get there, but I completely agree with you.
Yeah, you know what, Burt, I do the same thing. I have the strategic plan. So you and I are geeks in that way. I love it. But I also have a personal board of directors. And this was a recommendation from one of my coaches from years ago. And I highly recommend it. And so some of that in my coach said, set up a board of directors. Half of your board will be imaginary, meaning these are people that you don't know, but you look up to in business or in life.
Oh, so not imaginary friends, not like big purple monsters.
Right. Yes. Right. And then the other are people
That'd be
that
more
you
fun,
know.
though.
Yeah. And then the other are people that you do know in various industries, various phases of their career. Also, you want to have the type of person on this board of directors who will give you the straight and narrow advice, meaning, they're going to be solid. They're going to tell you that, really just solid piece of advice. But then you also need someone else on that board of directors who's going to push you, who's going to help you find the edge, who's help you going to take risk, who maybe is going to suggest something that you think they are just absolutely crazy, but that's exactly maybe something you need to lean into. And then, with your imaginary ones, those are the ones in your head of, I wonder what Burt Rosen would do right now. I wonder what Brittany Quemby would do right now. And so that gives you just a different way of thinking about things. And it not only will help in your job hunt and where you go, but I think throughout your career.
I just love all these ideas. I love the board of directors idea, but I was going to say I do a lot of the similar things. I do a lot of gratitude journaling. So personally, I do that, and just making sure that I'm grateful and kind of looking at those, what are priorities in my life and what am I grateful for? But then I also do a lot of goals. And like Britt said, they're goals personally, professionally, family wise. So it's kind of multifaceted, but I do it on a pen and paper, and I like to have it written down. So I'm really kind of like feeling what these goals are, and are they achievable? What do I want? What's important? And then I also do a lot of grounding. So I don't know if anybody does a lot of grounding, but walking barefoot outside is a huge thing that I love to do. And it just allows me to kind of like center myself and really look at, as Burt said, what's important and where do I want to focus most of my time and my energy and on things that I actually love. So, when you're in a spot of, maybe in between, or you're looking for a job, or even just in your current job, it's a nice to take that time to really become, I think, clear. And it gives me a lot of clarity in my, in my daily life.
Wait a minute. Wait. You do grounding barefoot outside. Don't you live in Canada?
Well, maybe not in the winter unless I have a hot tub or a sauna near.
In Canada, you do grounding on ice skates, don't you?
You're a hardy sort up north, I tell you, hardy.
I walk in my igloo and I just do it really quickly and then walk back in.
With your Labatt's?
That's right. That's right. The Labatt's blue, right? That's
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 blue.
that's what we do. I gotta say, like, I'm totally jealous of all of the three of you. I've never done those things except when it's forced upon me. So like when I found myself between gigs, between roles,
Yeah.
through, either because I quit or because, the company I was with was downsized or whatever. Those were the only times I took the opportunity to kind of rethink what I was doing, right? And every time I'm like, oh, I should do this more often. And inevitably I never do it. So, uh, I'm going to speak for all the other people out there. Like, when even if you just do it in those in between times, it can still be very helpful. I mean, it's better if you do it more frequently, a little bit more often, then you can guide yourself while you're in the middle of a job. But I've only ever done it sort of between, and I have found it therapeutic and very nice to know, kind of realize, oh yeah, maybe I want a role that's a bit more this side of marketing as opposed to that side of marketing, or kind of self-reflect and go, I thought I was really good at this, and clearly I'm not. So, here's some other ways to think about it. So, yeah, just having that time, even if it's an hour or so, just to think about that can really help. But especially when you're between jobs, that can really be a really good time to kind of assess what is it that you truly enjoyed and were truly good at, and then maybe focus your search on finding jobs that were specific to those types of activities, right? Because marketing's so broad, right? Like we all have lead gen numbers and audience numbers that we're trying to adhere to or to live up to. But are you really turned on by designing email campaigns? Right? Or is video more your thing now, or is something else more, social media not your thing because it's just so toxic in some places, right? So really think about that, because if that's not really what you want to do, then really go look for a job that has the activities like you did, Bert, that really is more aligned to what you want.
That's
Yeah,
right.
like the one thing I would just add is, I'm using big words, like Julie and I both talked about strategic planning for yourself. Colin talked about it, but like it doesn't have to be complicated, right? Like if you're sitting there, so I don't remember what book I read, but like it was some book a long time ago, and it said something like, if you say I want to lose weight, you're never going to lose weight.
Right.
If you say, okay, it's 11:30, what am I going to have for lunch? And you change what you have for lunch to make it healthier, you'll lose weight, right? So it's a little bit the same thing. So if you're sitting there and even if you're not in the right headspace, and just say to yourself, what do I like about marketing? And just write down an answer and take 30 seconds to do it. It's a start, right? And the more you do things like that, you'll get there. You don't have to sit down and build a huge PowerPoint presentation on your 5-year strategic personal plan, right? Like, I don't want it to sound too overwhelming. Like, honestly, for me, the first time I came up with my strategic plan, it was actually 2 years ago this weekend, I think. Yeah, it was 2 years ago this weekend. I just decided to go take a walk in the woods, no headphones, no podcast, no music. And like I had 3 guiding principles popped into my head while I was doing it. So it wasn't like I took 6 months, did a ton of research, and parked myself in front of a computer. I walked in the woods for 2 hours and I came out with 3 things that for the past 2 years have actually guided almost every decision I've made.
Yeah, I agree. But now, did you do it barefoot?
Not in this case, but I definitely, so Brittany, I'm in Portland, Oregon, right? So we're pretty progressive. My wife has a grounding mat. My whole family goes out and does a lot of grounding. My wife grounds a ton of times a day. So I completely understand what you're talking about. And I think there is something to that idea of realizing you're part of something bigger and you can get energy from the world. And I think that's really important.
Well, I think it's it's a self-care practice. Because I think grounding is a phenomenal thing. I also am very into meditation. It took a role that was exceptionally stressful to many years ago that I was trying to get through. And as a fairly new leader at that time, I ended up with a bad case of shingles. And part of that is just I hadn't yet learned how to lead in a way that doesn't just suck every ounce of my being. And so that put me in a space where I began to learn meditation. And gosh, I've been doing it for so long now. But, I think whatever your thing is, walking in the woods, grounding exercises, meditation, swimming, whatever it is you do, please do. And especially if you're in a job hunt situation that's stressful. and make sure you're doing it then as well.
And meditation is a great example. I just have to say this one quick thing. Like, it's another one that people can get intimidated about starting a
Oh,
meditation practice. I was listening to a meditation once and it said, okay, take a deep breath and exhale it. Congratulations, you just meditated, right? Like, meditation isn't, again, this huge concept, right? Like,
For sure.
meditation is just being present for any amount of time. It can be 30 seconds, it can be 2 hours. Right. So it doesn't have to be an overwhelm, like, to get in. And there's an app called Insight Timer for anyone who doesn't know it, which is a great meditation app, and it's free. It has a ton of guided meditations on it of all lengths and everything else. So
It's so true. I think people get so scared hearing that word, but there's also so many guided meditations, even just on YouTube. You don't even need an app. You can go and there's morning meditation and an evening afternoon meditation. They're like 5 minutes, and it's just something to rejuvenate yourself and kind of calm yourself, which is nice.
I
I
love
love
getting
all the
recommendations.
I do. I was gonna say I love all the recommendations, and I love, we've covered so many topics here. We've talked about job hunting, we've talked about reflecting, we've talked about skills that we look for, and that we value as marketers, as hiring managers. Final question to kind of wrap up this roundtable. What are you guys reading or watching right now that's giving you energy? Right. So regardless of what situation you're in, whether you're looking for a job or not, I mean, it's kind of a tough time out there with everything going on in the world. So where are you getting your energy and inspiration from? We'll start with you, Burt.
So I still get a lot of energy and inspiration from my volunteer stuff. I'm actually speaking at a conference in a couple of weeks about AI in healthcare, and I've been having a blast. Like, I'm teaching myself. I've done some webinars, but they're not overly helpful. So I've just been playing around with things myself and learning a lot, and it's been fun and it's given me a lot of energy. I mean, something as simple as basic Chat GPT is it's unbelievable, and it just really makes you think about what the world is capable of. So I've been getting a lot of energy from stuff like that, and from volunteering and trying to make a difference. I run a couple of Facebook groups. I'm on a couple of patient advocacy boards, and like, I talk to people all the time, and helping somebody one-on-one gives me more energy than any salary or annual bonus is going to give me, right? Making a difference in a person's life. So that's, I'm an extrovert, right? I get a lot of energy and charge from other people.
Julie, what about you?
Oh, wow. Well, you mentioned some books maybe, so I thought I'll share a couple different ones. One I love for marketing, and this is, I think, especially for anyone who's watching this that may be newer in the space or has some challenging. I'm a huge fan of Christine Slocum's book, Stop Starvation Marketing. I think she covers so many aspects, and I've gifted this to several people. I think it's a fantastic book from a pure marketing standpoint. Another one, Everybody Writes by Anne Handley. And she has a fantastic newsletter to Total Anarchy. Highly recommend. She's just the guru of how to write well. We talked a lot about creativity today. Rick Rubin's The Creative Act. Gift yourself this. I think it's imperative, regardless of what function you have in marketing, to always make sure that you are giving space to, because everybody's creative, regardless of what space you're in. And so this one's really good. And then personally, because we talked about a lot of personal things, I pulled this one. So one of my executive coaches had recommended it. They recommend it to a lot of their clients. It's called The Mountain Is You. And this is just a phenomenal book as well. So those are some. The other that I would recommend also is Jason Pfeiffer's One Sure Thing e-newsletter. That's a good one as well. And nice. I also finally heard Rufus Du Sol has out a new album. So of course, I think anything with music. So I'm probably going to go get inspired with that this weekend.
Brittany, what about you? Where are you drawing your energy and inspiration from these days?
So I've actually decided to do a social media detox about a month ago. And I wanted to just see what I could do. I found I was just picking up my phone endlessly and scrolling and, yes, entertained, but also I was like, oh, I'm wasting so much time that I could be focusing elsewhere. So again, just kind of reevaluating, where do I want to put my energy? So I got off of all social media except for LinkedIn, and I'm on there a little bit, but I found that I have so much more time to focus on good energy and on other things. So I've been, reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of my dad's vintage records, which I was able to get from his basement, which was nice. But recently I've been reading a book called West with Giraffes, and it's actually a historical novel based on true events where a guy in the Great Depression is helping get two giraffes from Uganda across the country to San Diego. But the overarching kind of themes are perseverance, how unexpected relationships can leave a lasting impact and make connections. So it's kind of telling with our conversation as well. So it's just, a really beautiful journey in the connections that you can make along the way in your life. So that's kind of where I'm focusing, and really, really trying to focus my energy in things that are meaningful to me and not just, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
I love it. These are great. I'm gonna have to pick up some of those books, Julie. Thank you for that. We'll put those books in the description so that everyone can
That'd be
link to
great.
them and see them.
What about
Those
you,
are
Colin?
yeah, I'm maybe I'm the weirdo. I don't know. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. But not the kind you think I've been watching. There's this guy, Rocky Kanaka. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He's basically, he goes to animal shelters, and he sits with dogs. That's the title of his series, called Sitting with Dogs. And he basically just goes in and sits with these dogs and talks about these dogs. And these dogs are they're either very violent, or they're very afraid. And you can just see when you look in the pen, they're like at the back of the corner of the pen. And he goes in, he's like a dog whisperer, right? He just sits there and he somehow gets these dogs to kind of show their personality, and he's basically saving their life, because if the dogs are like that, they don't get adopted, right? And they get put down. So he goes in, he spends like 2 hours, and he films the whole thing. And so it's 2 hours of this guy sitting in this animal shelter talking about dogs and people. And I don't know why, but I find it, and millions of other people find it, it's really inspiring just to watch this stuff. It has no impact on me other than it makes me feel good, and I have it on in the background sometimes. And he gets the chance to talk about just life in general, because of course dogs reflect their owners and everything. So I get an energy from that, because I just find it fascinating. And then also, from a marketing standpoint and from a camera standpoint, I'm always fascinated about how he uses all those things and does those things. So I'm getting inspiration from that. I've been watching a lot of inspirational Netflix shows, I guess. Documentaries on things that were like those Toys That Made America, Food That Makes America kind of programming, right? Like, and just how fluky it was that we ended up with frozen orange juice. And Brittany knows this. I'm just into this kind of stuff, right? And I find it fascinating, and I find it fun, and it just gets my mind off of other things. And then when I get back to it, I usually feel a lot more energized. So that's what
It probably makes you so much more valuable in marketing, right? Like, I was going to say, my favorite business book that I've ever read is Moneyball. And I don't know if people consider it a business book, but like, to me, it's genius, right? Like, you took something that had been approached the same way for a long time and completely rethought how to do it like that. If you can't take those lessons and apply them to marketing, if you can't figure out how the guy who sits with dogs is empathetic and really pays attention to the dog, like, I mean, if that doesn't help you with your marketing, like, right? Like, those outside perspectives are great.
That's right.
Small fun fact about Moneyball: I did not know the meaning of the word arbitrage until I read Moneyball. Like, I didn't know what that word meant.
Like, I think it's a great book.
It is a great book,
but the book is better. But
anyways, well, thank you to all of you for being on this first roundtable. Really appreciate all the personal stuff you shared, all the great ideas you shared. This has been great. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having us.
Oh, this was awesome. Are we calling it Coffee with Colin? Is that the?
Yeah.
Is it Coffee with?
It should be. Maybe we should call it that, but I think it should be Coffee with Colin and Brittany. But
or Swaay sessions, or
yeah. See, now that'll become a thing. We'll have to figure out how to name this, but the roundtables.
You can have a community contest.
Thank you, guys. I mean, it really has been amazing to see you. I've missed the Swaay community during my sabbatical, so thank you.
Yeah, and this was really fun.
So lovely to see all of you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that roundtable with Burt, Julie, and Brittany. We covered a lot of different topics and went down some pretty interesting tangents, I think. One of my key takeaways is that there is no magic formula when it comes to being a successful marketer. You can be curious, you can be creative, you can be awesome at execution. There are a lot of different skills that are needed, and any one of them could be valuable to a company, or if you wanted to strike out on your own. Another key takeaway is how important peers and mentors are. I really loved Julie's suggestion of a personal board of directors. I'm going to have to start putting one together for myself. And hey, if you enjoyed this roundtable, please help us out by mashing that like button and subscribing. Also, head on over to Swaay.Health, that's Swaay with 2 A's, .health, where you'll find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung, thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.